Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin. How's it going?
Good. It's been a day over here. We had 90 degrees and sunny this weekend, and now it's like 60 degrees and raining, and I'm like, hey, I didn't move to the Pacific Northwest.
Welcome to my world. I know. We actually have had sun. It was sunny all weekend, so we got tons of yard work done. And I was so happy just to get stuff out of the way. And there were things like, I don't know, because I think it rained like Saturday evening. It was just like we were working and there were things where I was like, oh, I can just do this tomorrow because it's going to be sunny all the way till Thursday. But for some reason, I just kept pushing myself and kept doing stuff. So I was weed whacking. I don't usually use the weed whacker because I can't start it. So, and same thing like with the generator, I can't start, and the leaf blower, I can't start. So I think 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I learned how to do the leaf blower, and I figured that out. And so now I can do that without needing Johan to be home. Last year, the power went out right when Johan left the property. And I was just like, what do I do? And so I went to YouTube and looked up our generator.
Oh, nice.
And watched instructions on how to start it and got it started. And when Johan got home, he was just like, because he was like, oh crap, she doesn't know how to start. But when he got home, he was like, oh my gosh, she started the generator. So this weekend, it was a weed whacker because he usually he starts it for me, and then I stand there and he puts it on me because it's a professional weed whacker. So it has a strap and a mask and all that. So he puts everything on me because otherwise it's backwards, it's upside down. I just don't know what I'm doing. But this time, again, it took me a few videos to find one where the person just told me what to do. It was all of these videos of men standing around their weed whacker talking about why they bought that one. And I'm just like, I don't care about your shopping ideology. I just need to know how to turn this thing on. And I think the fourth video was a woman. And now I always, my bias, because I tend to talk a lot. I just was like almost tempted to go, oh, this is probably going to be 10 times worse. She's going to have a whole story. She just got to the point. She was just like, here's the weed whacker. You do this, you do this, you do this. If this doesn't work, then do this and then if you do it this many times, you need it, and it was just like, boom. Before she even finished, I had it going. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I felt so proud of myself. So I did weed whacking.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, and then it rained. Like I think around 5 or 6 o'clock, it was just like, because we were watching these dark clouds, and I was like, well, maybe they're just like floating by because it's supposed to be sunny. And it was like the clouds opened up and every raindrop on the planet came down on the city of Marysville. And for about, I don't know how long it rained, but it was just like, wow, we're not going to be mowing anything tomorrow. But it's still overcast, but we haven't had rain for 2 days. Hence the house painting. So
yeah, that's exciting. I feel like that's like a real grown-up thing.
I know, right?
Like we have to get a new roof on our house, and I'm like, oh, I'm like an official grown-up now.
We're doing a lot of home improvement work, and it's funny watching the dogs because I was really worried that the dogs would be stressed out. We have all these strangers on the property, new sounds, new smells. Rodrigo's very, very sensitive to any type of loud noises, gets really stressed out. My dogs have been fine. I didn't do CBD oil. I didn't do essential oils. I tend to, with my dogs, I tend to go overboard in one direction in anticipation of like all hell breaking loose. And I decided this time, just everything with Scout has forced me to slow down because you just never know. And I decided to just wait and see. Let's just see how they act. And I introduced them to all the painters and let them go out. And all the painters are huge dog people.
Oh, that's great.
So they are like, so can we play with the dogs now? And today I felt so bad because I was just like, it was 9 a.m. and I'm like, still not like, this is not me. I'm not supposed to be talking to people right now. This is horrible for me. But I, had a smile on my face and trying to be nice. And I was just like, well, no, it's still, I got to feed them, even though they had already eaten. And I needed to sit down and work because if I didn't start working at it, my day would just go by of me staring into space, wondering why I'm awake. But it was funny because they were like, well, maybe at lunchtime. And I was like, yeah. It's like, when you guys are taking a break, come and get me. It's like, they have all their toys in here. You guys can take them out and run them. I don't care. But they ended up cutting out early today because they felt sprinkles and they didn't want to take a chance on our paint job, which I appreciate. But yeah, it's like Apollo he's just like, loving the attention. He goes from person to person.
Aww.
Rodrigo does too, but he's a little more calm about it. Scout goes up to people and just barks. And so I had to explain that he's not yelling at you. He's just loudly telling you how his day is going right so far. So if you just talk back to him, he'll eventually stop. And Zoe, same thing. They're both just very talkative dogs, but it's been an interesting couple of days.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been trying to figure out with this whole roof thing is like, I can't have the dogs home for that with them banging and everything. Yeah. And I mean, good God, Nino will think he's, under attack or something, So then I'm like, well, what do I do with him? Because the other thing Nino hates is leaving the house, getting in the car, going somewhere else, being around people that he doesn't know. Like, these are all things that Nino does not like. So he's just going to have a really bad day that day. Yeah, he's going to have to come to work with me. I'll have to have both dogs or something. That'll be interesting.
I think it's funny, just the things that we will do for our dogs. Because I could totally see myself, like if we had to have our roof replaced, thinking maybe we should just go get an Airbnb for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, Kimberly, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I can schedule it for when we go to the beach or something.
Or just take it just like, hey, let's take a long weekend. I mean, because this is Memorial Day weekend coming up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that today, where I don't know why I do know I'm an accountant by day. So, and I don't know if you have this with your day job, but I'm always a month behind in my head. So even though it's the middle of May, my brain is on April because I just finished closing the books for April.
Oh, right.
So that's where my head is. And so I don't actually start thinking about May until the end of May. So Gotcha. It's always surprising to me when the end of May comes up and I'm like, oh, yeah. So.
Yeah, our calendar revolves around whenever judges set a case in for trial. And then we have all these deadlines that are like, this is like 30 days before trial date, 60 days before trial date, 90 days. So like our calendar is, just depends on some random judge saying, okay, I got time next March. And then we back everything out around that. So it always changes. So we just finished a trial season and now I think our next one will be in January. So like, I'm like, oh, okay, I have kind of an easy summer and then like shit will get real again in the fall.
I think it's hilarious. Just the both of us have kind of, analytical, deep thought day jobs. And then I guess that explains why we like research and deep into, something that's, technically a hobby, but wow, we take it so seriously. I mean, when Scout, he had his second acupuncture appointment yesterday and the veterinarian said, because she's very private. So she doesn't want me to post about her or, I'm not sharing anything that she is telling me,
okay,
because she's worried about, which is, I think you'll find interesting and I know we talked about Chinese herbs last week and about how if the cancer comes back, then that means the herbs aren't working. But she's like, there's 8,000 different remedies that you can choose from. So it's not like you're out of the woods. And so as we're talking, she's texting me different herbal remedies to research, because she's like, you seem like the type of person that really likes to learn stuff. So I'm going to give you these to research and you read up on them. And then we'll talk about them next week about if, I want to put him on any of them. And
my God, I would love that.
I know, it's just like so cool. And I just so appreciated that and she's so good. I mean, that's what it's like. It figures that she's private, because I would have never have found her were it not for, Dr. Kelleher that recommended her. Because she's so private, but she's like my dream come true.
Yeah.
And, like I told you before we started recording, other than our integrative vet, Dr. Sherry Goodry, she's the first veterinarian that has, how she interacts with Scout is so astounding. And it's so much fun just talking to her, because it's like talking to you, but she's a veterinarian, right? And she knows so much about traditional Chinese medicine. And so I'm just sitting here like, well, what made you get into this? And what made you, and I'm just like, it is so fascinating.
I have had all of those conversations with my veterinarian too. And my veterinarian also, it was word of mouth that I got to her. She doesn't have a website. She works out of her home. Yep. You kind of got to know somebody to find her. And I just feel so incredibly fortunate that we made our way to her.
Yeah, she's so cool. And and as I was leaving, her next appointment was coming in, and we didn't cross each other, but it was nice because the lady was like, "Is she ready for us?" And I'm like, "She sure is." And and then Scout, since he wanted to walk after the last appointment, I took him for a walk, just around the block, and then we drove home. But oh my God, it was just so much fun.
Do you love the area where she lives?
I do.
Because this is so funny. Right? So the road where our vet lives, it's this kind of windy back road. She's probably 1.5 miles off the main road. It's my dream to live on this road. Everybody waves to each other as they're going down the street, whether they're in their yard or in their car. Everybody has backyard chickens or goats or something, but they're not farm properties, there may be an acre, of properties. And I just we deer run out in front of you. And, it's I'm just this is where I want to live. And I'll be listening to music or a podcast or something. And as soon as I turn down her road, it's I turn it off. And this is just this is the place.
What's funny is that because she's in Seattle, and I am probably Seattle's worst. I don't know what you would call it when you're not a fan.
The opposite of the tourism board.
Yeah, I'm an anti-fan of Seattle, big time. I mean, I can go on rants, and there was actually a while, during the pandemic when I would just go on rants about Seattle. Whenever I had to go into the office, I'd just be like, "Oh, and this is what I saw today. Here, I went and walked around and took pictures of how horrible Seattle is." And I always talk about how Seattle's drivers, people can't drive. And I have horrible things to say about Seattle. And I don't know what Johan is doing, but he's making so much noise. It's good Lord. Jeez,
one time I was recording an interview, and Tim decided to build a shelf in the hallway outside the door. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you can hear that?
Johan will start vacuuming or doing something. And I'm like, are you kidding? But anyway. But yeah, so I'm an anti-fan of Seattle, not a fan at all. But one thing I love about Seattle, and this is what I've always loved, and it reminds me of when I first moved to Seattle, and I had that glow of moving away from home and living on my own. I was a grown-up now, even though my mom still gave me an allowance. I was a grown-up. And but yeah, it was the houses. I love the homes. And I don't know the style. I'm horrible when it comes to architecture, but I don't know if they're craftsman style homes, but there's a style of home in Seattle, and it's in these neighborhoods where she's in the Wallingford area. West Seattle has these homes, different areas of Seattle has these homes, and although the homes are all right next to each other, I don't know. I just love it so much because I want to walk into everyone's home and just give a tour of this beautiful home. And it's one of those where if I had a friend that was a real estate agent, that is what we would do, is like, take me and show me homes. But, and just, I just love it. There's just so beautiful they have these nice decks, and some of the homes where the homes will have a deck between them where they share them. And that's what this veterinarian's home is like, which is so
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so, she's sharing this huge deck with her neighbors, and it's just, I just love it so much and sometimes on some of the blocks, it's just like people are walking their dogs, walking with their kids. There's these little signs everywhere, just like, slow down, there's kids at play. And there's a Catholic school around the block from her house, and they have the little uniforms, and it's so cute. And I mean, it's clean. It's super, that's like one of my things I don't like about it's downtown Seattle that I really have an issue with. It's not clean all the time in certain areas. It's just gone so over the past 20 years, but it's just so clean, and everyone seems to have like pride in their yard, and it's just, I love it so freaking much. Yeah, I do love it there.
That's funny.
So I hear your pup had a session.
Yes, it was Penny's turn. We had our soul session with Dr. Isla Fishburn, and I was like so surprised. It was so different from Nino's session. So in Nino's, we did the whole soul retrieval process, and she did not do that. Penny did not need that. So it actually kind of made me a little emotional. Penny's an older gal. I don't know exactly how old. I always say, I'm guessing around 12, maybe. She's been with us 7 years. She started going gray pretty quickly after we got her, like within a year. So I'm like, I knew she wasn't like 2, when I found her. So one of the things that was communicated to us, she said, Penny's in great health, but like you would talk to your parents about their wishes, Penny had messages for what she would like for when her time comes. And so she talked us through, it was very simple, a lot of the color white with like fabrics and candles. And there are like a chant that was recorded for us to play as she's transitioning or as soon as possible afterwards. And also kind of like homework for me of songs to listen to and a book to read when that time comes that Penny has asked and me to read. And so that part made me really just emotional. And then she also just had messages for us and movies that she wants Tim and I to watch. So that's what we're going to do on Memorial Day weekend. So the first one is Beetlejuice.
I love Beetlejuice.
And then the second one is Steel Magnolias.
Such a good movie.
Funny story. Don't think I've ever seen Steel Magnolias.
Oh my gosh, I'm jealous for you to see it for the first time. Steel Magnolias is one of those movies that when it comes on television, I know that movie front and back, but when it comes on I will sit and watch it. And there's one scene that is going to grab your heart and then squeeze it. And because it's so emotional, but it's so beautiful. And it's just like, what is her? Sally Fields. Sally Fields she is one of those actresses, another actress that, and I can't think of her name, Sissy Spacek is an actress that's like this. These actresses that, man, they go into a role and I don't see Sally Field or I don't see Sissy Spacek. She was so good. And I felt like, and then of course this brings out the movie nerd in me, which is, Julia Roberts was when she was new to acting and she was blowing up all over the place. She was in everything. And to see her acting alongside this cast of amazing actresses, it was Dolly Parton and,
I'm looking up when that movie came out because I know
It
was
had
like
to
when
be
I
in
was
the
a kid.
90s.
It was 1989. So okay, so I was like 10 years old
Okay,
when
89.
it came out. And I think I remember that like my parents watched it and thought it was like sad. And like I was not into sad. And it's like, and I was like a kid.
Yeah.
And so I've just never seen it.
Well, it's funny because when I was your age, the sad movie this is probably one of the movies that turned me into a movie lover was Terms of Endearment with, and I'm horrible with actress's name. And I want to say, is her name Anne? No, it's not Anne.
I don't think I've ever seen that one either.
Oh my gosh.
I was not into sad when I was.
Yeah, this is another sad one. And this one, the reason why I like it today, Shirley MacLaine, I like it today is because it's about a relationship between a mother and a daughter, and it's a very tough relationship with a mother and a daughter. And I think, like seeing that movie when I did, because of course, I think there's a meaning behind everything that happens in life, prepared me, not at the time, but it planted a seed for the relationship I would have with my mom. And so now looking back, my mom is a difficult woman at times, but she's still, she does her best. And
she's your mom.
Yeah, she's my mom. And I just have been able to just let all of that go and just let her be my mom. And she is who she is. But yeah, Terms of Endearment, again, there is a scene in Terms of Endearment towards the end that just grabs you by the heart and rips it out because it's like so intense. Shirley MacLaine is so good, but she was, everyone in this movie, you were going to have so much fun. I'm just like really excited for you. Grab a box of tissue. The whole movie isn't sad. The whole movie makes you want to move down south, actually, because it's just so nice and it's sunny and beautiful and everyone's so friendly and nice to each other. And I loved Still Magnolias. It's so good. It's so
yeah, good. I've and what's funny too is I saw Beetlejuice when I was a kid, but like I was not somebody that was like obsessed with it or anything. So like I haven't even seen that one since I was a kid. And neither is Tim. Like Tim was like, I saw Beetlejuice a long time ago, never seen Steel Magnolias. So I just thought
it's going to be so crazy seeing Alec Baldwin back when he was hot. There's two Alec Baldwins for me. There's, the Alec Baldwin, Beetlejuice Alec Baldwin. And then there's the, what is it? There's a show where it was a show about a show on TV.
Oh, 30 Rock?
Yes, 30 Rock. But yeah, because he's still, I don't feel like he's a handsome man right now because of his latest crazy life that he has.
Doesn't he have like 8 kids or something?
I feel like, he really likes children. I feel like he's trying to populate the world with Baldwins.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you never hear about his other brothers.
I know, like that was such a thing.
That was like the big Baldwins. It's like, there's more of them?
Yeah.
It's just, and today it's like the Hemsworths where you're like, there's more of them? Wow.
I just always remember in Clueless, like she's like, oh, he's such a Baldwin.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. It was a term. But yeah, Alec Baldwin, he was so different back then, the way he looked. And now he looks so, I don't know, grown up, I guess, and regal comparatively. He was just so different back then. Oh, you're going to have so much fun. If you need a, well, I guess it's a good choice of movies because you have a happy one and a sad one. So watch the sad one first.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
And then watch the happy one.
So I just thought that was so interesting that she had kind of like homework for us. And I just thought too, like, I don't know, that's totally something my dog would do. Like give me homework and like a book to read and, like.
She knows you well.
And then I just thought there was just this whole message that was channeled and it has just made me giggle so many times since then, thinking about it, that she feels so loved and she feels like a celebrity or like royalty. And I just think of like her fan club at Starbucks where all the baristas know her and come running over and are like, oh, it's Penny. And, or, I bring her whenever I do like a podcast interview, if it's somebody I can do in person, like I'll bring her and people are like, oh, it's Penny. And then I just think the royalty thing kind of made me laugh too, because so I have like a crossover SUV, like a Mazda CX-5. And so she is too old, in her younger years, she could jump right up into it. And then I would lift her. Well, yada, 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 breast cancer, had frozen shoulder from surgery. I can't lift her anymore. So she has these stairs. And so I have to bring the stairs out and let her up in the car. And then, when we get back home, the chiropractor doesn't want her jumping out of the car. So I get the stairs back out. And so that just made me every time I do it now, I think, oh, this is why she feels like royalty. I'm running in front of her with stairs.
Yeah, there's I don't know if it's a Husky Malamute. I feel like it's a Malamute, but it might be a Husky Malamute mix that I follow, Sherpa. I'm obsessed with this dog, along with, I guess, 500,000 other people. And the Sherpa is human. He bought his dog a car, a Mini Cooper. And I just thought that was so cool. And
that is cool.
He also has a huge red van that they drive around in. So, but that when you said the stairs, I immediately thought of him getting the stairs. So Sherpa just stands next to the van and then walks up the stairs into the van. And I'm just and the van is completely tricked out for the dog. And I'm like, that's totally something I want to do.
So it was definitely a completely different, which I mean, I guess it makes sense because she is such a completely different dog than Nino. And then she actually requested some physical healing from the soul level. And I thought this was really interesting too, because she said it was coming to her in spots. And when Penny had that whole health crisis a couple years ago, it was her feet that got really bad. And then she would get these spots on her. She would just get random kind of scabby spots on her. And so she's like, yeah, I just kept, she kept wanting me to heal these spots in different places on her. And so I just thought that was really interesting also. So we had, in Isla, you get videos of everything that she does, both because she does a ceremony beforehand, and then she sent me links to all the movies and books and songs and the chanting, and you get all this information, kind of cataloged for you. So I can't say enough about what a great experience it was. And I had bought a package of 3 sessions. So she said that she would ask the dogs who wanted to have the extra session. And we think it's going to be Nino, because she thinks he needs another soul retrieval.
Yeah.
And she said that, Penny just said I'm good, I'm great, I'm loved. This is what I want you to know. And,
Nice.
And so yeah, I think it'll be Nino who will get the next session.
Oh my God. That's so much fun. I really do love it. That's so much fun.
It was really emotional. And we did it on our anniversary. So it was also kind of special. So we've been married 17 years and together for 22 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think Johan and I have been together I always have to go by how long I've been at my job. So I think I've been at my job for 18 or 19 years. I can't remember. And so that means we've been together for either 16 or 17 years. Or no, 17 or 18 years. Because I was on my job for a year before I met Johan.
Oh, okay.
So, but I should go look and see how long I've been at my company. I've been out there for a long time.
Actually, June will be 10 years since I've been at this firm for my boss I work for. But I met him, my boss, back in 2004 when we both worked at a different place. So I've been doing the specific type of work I do since 2004, and I've known him since then. Mm-hmm. And we always kind of stayed in touch. He had left and kind of worked other places, and so we had always kind of stayed in touch. And then when he started his own firm, I came over and joined him.
Nice. Very nice. I love that. I just love the relationships. I mean, it's just it's so amazing to me. Just, I don't know. Do you think that, having dogs has made you a better human?
Oh,
dealing with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. I was a nightmare. I mean, I meant well. it's actually interesting. Like dogs and therapy sort of came into my life around the same time. So I'm definitely a better person since both of those things, you know.
It's funny to me because it's like, I think that I would like to think that dogs started me on the path to becoming a better person, but I wasn't always a better person. I think that surprisingly, it was the past couple years that really sort of like pushed me over the line and it just became all of a sudden I gained a lot, which I thought I was always a very empathetic person. I really gained a lot of empathy because I'm so curious about why people feel the way they feel. And I think over the past couple of years, all of us have been hit with so many perspectives and so many opinions. And at first it was just overwhelming. And like, I'm so tired of everyone thinking they know everything. But then I started wondering, like, well, I mean, of course, there are going to be, people that are just troublemakers. But for some people, it's just like, is this really the hill you want to die on? Well, okay. Why? Because why should I care? And, and so I started asking people questions. And now I'm just kind of curious about, the whys of and so I think in that way, that's how because my dogs are always so open to being around other people. And they haven't always been that way. I mean, Rodrigo back, before all of this, my favorite place to take him was the dog park. And he loved, it was so funny because we would get in the car and, he and Sydney would sit in the back and we'd drive. And when we took one turn, there's this one turn and it was like when we're on our way and as I'm slowing down to take the turn, Rodrigo would start getting all wound up. And then I'd turn and then he would just start barking because he knew where we were going. We were going to the dog park. And it was like this huge, I would put him on leash and I'm walking and he's barking all the way to the dog park. And it's this long walk to get to the field where the dog park is. And he's just happy and barking and dragging me along. And then, I would let him out and he would just play until he was so tired that he would be ready to go. And then one day, I actually remember the day, I went to the dog park and I think we were actually there for a reason. Like, I think that there was something else going on at the dog park where maybe like all of us were there to clean up or I don't know, but it was a bunch of us at the dog park. So our dogs were running around. Someone brought toys, which I thought was weird because I was like, how can you just play with your own dogs in a park full of dogs? But it was just like, not my business. But one of the dogs had a Frisbee and dropped it and Rodrigo went and just laid on it and then growled at anyone who came near him. And I was like, well, that's not like him. And so I went and got him and I don't know, he was just acting so weird that I was just like, I don't know, you just seem to be cranky. And I left. And that was the start of basically me not going to the dog park anymore because every time I went, he would get into a fight. And at the time, I thought the reason why was because we added a third dog, a puppy, to our family. Rodrigo loved Blue. We all did. And I thought the reason why he was getting into fights all the time was because he was protecting Blue. But now looking back, I think the reason why is because he was constantly having blood sugar spikes because I was feeding him kibble. And then also, like rampant inflammation from eating a high carb diet, and so when he would run around and play and stuff, his joints and stuff would start aching and hurting. And then he would be in a bad mood. And so he was just like, became this monster dog where if I came to the dog park, I wouldn't go in, I would just walk around, but people would start looking at me like, is she coming in here? Because it's like, and I even had someone stop me to say that, and this time, thankfully, Rodrigo didn't really get into fights. He just became very aggressive and like lots of growling and, and like I would have to go and get him and stuff. But he did get into a fight once because a dog, which is why I thought he was protecting Blue, a dog jumped on Blue and was growling at Blue. And so he went and jumped on the dog to get him off of Blue, maybe. And and I just, once they got, separated, and he did, he backed off. The other dog was pure white, so no blood or anything. I leashed everyone up and we left the dog park. And the next day, a woman came up to me and said, yeah, those people, they were looking for you because they were going to call the police on you for your aggressive dog and have your dog taken away, and just was telling me all this stuff. And I'm listening to her as she's telling me all this. And she just seemed to be a little too happy to relay the information. So I just basically was like, I don't believe you. I think you're a liar. I was like, but I'm here all the time walking my dogs around the field. So if the next time they see me, they're more than welcome to come and find me. And at the time, Johan was, a deputy. So I was like, and, my partner is a deputy. So, if you want, I can pull him on the phone right now and you guys can make a complaint to him. And that was the end of that. But it just kind of like made me realize that, my dog was a problem dog. And the reason why he was is because I was feeding him kibble.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, that actually ties in with this guest I had on the Believe in Dog podcast this week. This amazing woman, her name's Tamara Tokash, and she has been working in the dog training world, I'll call it, since like 1990 is when she started her own company. And she had been learning and training and working with other people even before that. And one of the things we talked about was, can nutrition affect your dog's behavior? Because what happened with her is, while her career started in like training and obedience, then she got in being like a behaviorist. And then that led her into like nutrition and health and wellness and how all these things affect our dogs. And now she kind of puts it all together into one package when she's working with new clients. And I was just really fascinated by that. I have friends, actually, the first person who I ever learned about raw feeding from is a friend of mine who's a dog trainer. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is this? Like, I had never, ever heard of such a thing before. And I remember thinking too, because I knew another, like through this kind of network of people, I met other dog trainers who they all were like distributors for this raw dog food company that's based in Baltimore. And I was kind of like, why are all these trainers like selling food? Like, what does that have to do with anything, And it took me a while to even understand like how one could impact the other. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you my biggest dog mom fail story.
Okay, I'm excited.
So, we had our first two girls. We always called them the girls, Lucy and Kahlua. And, in retrospect, God, we did everything wrong when introducing Kahlua to the house. And it's only that she was like the sweetest girl on earth and loved Lucy that they got along so well just from day one. It was certainly not from anything that we did, it was all down to Kahlua and her just amazing temperament. But we got cocky and we thought, oh, well, we have two pit bulls. We must know something that they live together in harmony, And what ended up happening was, through some strange people that were introduced to our lives through my very irresponsible brother, we ended up with a third dog on our doorstep one day. And it was this pit bull that needed a home, and we didn't want to take her to a shelter. This was probably back in 2008. So shelters around Maryland and Baltimore have made a lot of strides. I actually might feel differently about that today. But at any rate, we were like, well, we're going to find this dog a home. We're going to keep her at our house. We know what we're doing. Biggest mistake ever. We do not have a large house. It's a rancher. We don't have like a basement. We don't even have like an attached garage. So there's not like a lot of places to like section off, but we didn't know anything about doing a 2-week shutdown or introducing the dogs. We just threw Lucy and Kahlua together and it worked out. And we threw, her name was Lola, into the mix and assumed it would all work out. I always feel like I need to apologize, especially to Lucy, who was trying to tell us from the beginning that this was not a good fit for her. But I didn't know enough about like dog body language or anything to read the signals and interpret what she was telling us. And we actually ended up having a dog fight in our house one day. And that is my big dog mom fail. But this dog, Lola, was kind of nutty. And she would bounce off the walls. You could walk her 10 miles a day and she would still be bouncing off the walls, with her energy, and she couldn't focus or listen. We had a trainer come in. The trainer was very overwhelmed, and I think she was kind of new to this. I don't know. She was probably the cheapest person I could find. So, that was what probably mattered to me at that time. And, it's that was we were well, that was a waste of time and money. We had maybe 3 sessions with her or something, and it was a clicker training, and I don't know, we could never quite get the click thing down. It was just all a mess. So we thought we were trying, but it was a disaster. But in retrospect, by the way, we ended up finding a lovely home for this dog. She had a child that she loved, and she had a dog brother who kind of whipped her into shape. And the people who ended up adopting her, they were very into doing training and stuff. So we got updates on her for a while that, she was still kind of a little nutty, but it was a loving home, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just look back and I just think about the nutrition angle, because we were just feeding kibble at that time, and I'm sure we were just feeding whatever they had at the grocery store, because we didn't have a lot of money back in those days. And that's my one story of oh, there's so many things I wish I could have done differently, and nutrition is a big one of them. Oh, yeah. And what I will say for Penny and Nino is we have fed them raw ever since day one of them being in our house. So I don't honestly know if there was any kind of big dramatic shift in their behavior, because I've really only ever seen them on raw.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely saw it with Rodrigo. He would get really amped up. He wouldn't listen. He was such a hard dog when he was younger to have, he also had health issues as well. But, it's sort of he was limping, he was 2 years old, and I thought my dog had arthritis, and it was just his joints were hurting him. And I finally took him in to a holistic vet. I mean, this was after I switched to raw and stuff, and I met this holistic vet who I could never make it to my appointments on time. So he kind of fired me politely through his receptionist. And so... But he explained so many things about what my dog was going through, and it was a complete different message than what I was getting from the first vet that we took our dogs to, and that's what made me push to find a vet that was a good fit for me and the dogs. Because I think because we've had traditional vets, it's just that they were very open to new things, because it's just sort of I'm going to feed raw. So if that's going to be a problem, I'm more than happy to go elsewhere. But that's never going to, you cannot lecture me out of doing this. And right. Our veterinarian is well, I guess I'll see what happens. He was but your dogs look healthy, so apparently you're doing something right. So let's just go from there. And he just saw through my dogs how healthy they were. So he was never a proponent, but he was never going to discourage me either. Rodrigo's the only dog that I truly witnessed a personality change when I switched him to a fresh food diet. I mean, I'm sure that there were other small things probably, but that was the biggest one, was the aggression.
That's so interesting. I'm so fascinated by that idea of how, nutrition affecting behavior. Cause my husband, Tim, let me tell you, he gets hangry. On the weekend, for whatever reason, he never eats breakfast on the weekends. And by 3:00 or something on Saturday afternoon, I'll hear him in on his video game, and he's screaming and yelling and all this stuff. And I'll kind of dip in and be did you eat lunch? And he'll be no.
Snickers.
Exactly.
You're kind of a diva when you haven't eaten. Snickers.
And there's this little coffee shop by my office where I like to get lunch, and in the summertime they make real good hand squeezed lemonade. Oh my God, I love this lemonade. But what I have found, like sometimes I'll do it on like a Friday if I got nothing going on, because I will drink that lemonade and I will feel amazing. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
and like I can't keep my eyes open. I can't concentrate. I can't focus. I crash so hard if I drink that lemonade with my lunch. And so I have had to kind of learn the hard way that I can't do these things. And I think about what that would be like for dogs who are eating, kibble, and yeah, you get that rush or you're bouncing off the wall. And I just think of that Lola. I mean, she literally would bounce off the walls, and then just she couldn't focus, even the clicker, she would, where's that coming from? And she like very excited about it. And I mean, she was so bouncing off the walls. So I think about that all the time now whenever I think about this topic.
It's funny because it's, what cracks me up when it comes to raw feeding is whenever someone gives me pushback about it. And they're just like, wow, I can't believe that that's how you feed your dog and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just sort of like, but we've all accepted that eating fast food on a daily basis is not a good idea.
Yes.
We've all accepted that, like everyone has a story of, someone getting diabetes after eating a certain way of, over a certain amount of time. I mean, I think many of us still remember Super Size Me.
Yeah.
What that guy went through. And, I just, gosh. And, I can't remember where I was going. I was going on a trip. I was probably going to a blogging conference. It doesn't really matter, but I was at the airport at, the butt crack of dawn, because that's the best time apparently to take a flight. So it's like, 5, 6 in the morning waiting for my flight. And this kid is walking around with a red Mountain Dew. And so, okay, it's bad enough that this child, and it wasn't like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, even though that's still bad. It was a kid, like 6-year-old or something, walking around with like a 16-ounce Mountain Dew, but it was a red one. And it's like that red wasn't crushed up strawberries. It was some type of red dye number 5 along with this Mountain Dew, which I don't know. I've always thought Mountain Dew was always the highest caffeinated soda.
Yes, I remember that.
Because that, before energy drinks, if you needed a boost, you went and got a Mountain Dew.
That was when I met Tim. Oh my God, he would drink like 2 liters of Mountain Dew a day. And when they came out with the red one, he would like, I had this photo of us. It's very funny. Sorry. I posted this old school photo of us for our anniversary, and like Tim's red Mountain Dew is sitting right on the table in this photo. And I just laugh because he doesn't drink it anymore. And I haven't drank soda in years, but I just laugh like that's old school Tim right there.
I was just sitting in the airport, and I was going to a blogging conference because I was working, and I'm just typing away on my computer and working. And I'm sitting here like watching this kid praying that he's not on my flight. Right. And at some point in time, I was like nearby, and I heard them say something, and I was just like, oh, well, at least they won't be on my flight. Because I'm just in my head picturing this kid running up and down the aisles screaming.
And like kicking. Right?
And hitting people with a stick. And it's just like, I don't know what happened, but it was like the worst thing. And so everyone I've told that story to over the years always reacts to a child drinking Mountain Dew. So it's like, so we understand all that sugar and caffeine isn't good. So why is it that we're okay with giving all this sugar and carbs to a dog and then being surprised that our dogs aren't behaving the way we want them to behave?
Like, I just think like you said, like human doctors are like begging us to like, please stop eating ultra processed foods. And then veterinarians are like, please only let your dog eat ultra processed food.
Your dog's
real meat.
It's like, oh my God. It's so hilarious because, I even hear from people every now and then. I get a message from someone that's like, well, who are you? And, and sometimes it's said rudely, but actually most of the time it's actually quite respectful, where it's like, who are you to tell me, how to feed my dog. And I'm like, well, I'm not telling you.
Right. I'm just sharing
what I do, but I get what you mean. And I just break down. It's like, yeah, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a veterinarian. None of that. I'm just saying that this is what I do and this is what I've experienced. And I want others to experience the same thing. It's like, stop. It's like, would you feed your kid McDonald's every night for,
their whole life?
Years?
Yeah.
And it's just like, sadly for a lot of people, well, I don't know about now, but for a lot of people, they did. Because I don't remember who I was talking to, but I was like, remember when McDonald's used to be cheap?
Is it not anymore? I don't even know.
No, it's not anymore. I mean, they do have the dollar menu, so maybe it is still cheap. But I just remember when McDonald's, it was still a treat. It wasn't something we did all the time, but it wasn't, like a Happy Meal wasn't super expensive. Whereas now, like fast food joints are very expensive.
Yeah, the only place that we go to that's like fast food is Chick-fil-A. And it is shocking. I'm like, $30? It's two of us.
It's like going to a restaurant.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to tip somebody because I feel now, because we've talked about Chick-fil-A. And I keep driving by Chick-fil-A. And I was told Johan the other day, I was like, I really want to go there. I really want to go to Chick-fil-A. But there is a line to get.
They're very efficient.
Yeah. And I just can't. I'm the most just impatient person on the planet. And whenever I see a long line, I'm just like, okay, no, that's all right.
Chick-fil-A is the only thing I would wait in the line for because they are so efficient and also they have manners. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that they say like, thank you and you're welcome and things like that.
So I really have to just find a time when I can go to Chick-fil-A because I have seen like they have a double line. They have people out in the lot when it's really long taking orders.
Yes.
I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. And when I'm not used to a restaurant, I can't go through the drive-thru.
Yes. Oh my God. My husband is like, I can't go someplace where I don't know the system.
I can't. I get panicked and I feel like because of course the world revolves around me. So I feel like everyone around is like, what is that idiot doing? Because that's what I do when I'm in the drive-thru lane of Starbucks. And I'm sitting here like, you know what? You need to know what you want before you get up to that microphone, and you better have at least one backup order in case something's out. And the last time I was at Starbucks, I don't know who I'm talking to in my head or as I'm complaining. And then I get up there and I was just like, and the person was like, just 1 second, I'm really sorry. We're short staffed. I'm like, of course they are. Everyone is short staffed right now. I'm so glad that no one could hear my thoughts because I wasn't thinking very gracious thoughts. But yeah, if I go to Chick-fil-A, I have to go inside or I have to sit someplace and figure out what I want and come up with a backup plan. And then I can go and order because I don't want to be like my mom because my mom has no problem. She will stand in line and then she will get up there and there will be a line out the door and she will stand and I just picturing her staring up at the menu like this, just going back and forth. And just like, you have been standing in this line for 15 minutes. You should have been looking at that menu the entire time. So you have people behind you. And because she's my mom, it's not like I go, no, but I'm just like, I'll just tell her like when we actually haven't seen each other in person in a long time. But on the rare occasions when we're in the same town and we're eating someplace, I will just tell her, she's like, well, I want to go here. And I'm like, nope, not unless you know what you want. And she's just like, no. And I give her rules. It's like, no checking underneath the table to see if it's clean. No ordering something complicated that needs to be done in a particular way and then sending it back over and over again. So, and it's like those are the rules. And if you can't do that, we can't go. And sometimes she'll go, okay, then I guess we just won't go because that is just her thing. And what's funny is that nobody cares. I'm sure no one cares, but I get so worried about just holding things up. And
I hate to be that. Yes, I hate to be the person that holds
oh my God, it's
holds
the
things up.
worst.
Yeah, and I always have. I know the order, and like I order like the same thing like all the time. Like pretty much any place I go, it's like I just kind of get one thing. I'm not very adventurous with my eating habits, I will admit. But yeah, but like I have my plan. I have a backup plan. I totally do that too.
Yeah, we have Johan and I. Well, we haven't been eating out in a while because well, everything is so expensive. Because it used to be that we can go out to dinner, you know, in our town, and like our normal tab would be about $25 for the both of us, and this is like a sit down dinner. But and then you knew it. We got fancy if it was like $40.
Right.
If it was $40, that's because we had drinks, and so
right.
And then if it was like $50, it's because we had dessert,
2 drinks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just something weird. It's like, oh, look at us. But now everything is like, you know, about $40 to $50, and then on top of that, alcohol, and it's just like, okay, never mind. I'll just cook.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't. But when we do go out. And it's funny because you know how they say, you know, well, dogs, wouldn't you get bored if you had to eat the same thing over and over and over again? It's like, no, I like comfort in knowing what's coming, and I know the things that I like. And sometimes I do, like the other day, Johan and I went out to eat, and we went to a teriyaki restaurant that's in our town. And he was like, you want to just go there? And I'm just like confused. And I was like, so you want to call and order our food? He's like, no, we'll just eat there. And I'm like, eat where? He's like, no, you can sit down inside and eat. And even though I knew this, I was still confused. Like, why would we want to eat there? But then I got excited because I was like, oh, well, if we're going to eat there, I'll order something different. And I was miserable. What I ordered was not to my liking.
And that is why I'm always afraid to try new things.
It was not, I mean, it was fine, but it just was not. And as I'm eating, because I always, again, I feel guilty. Like, you know, I didn't like it. It's not their fault. I didn't.
Right.
I'm the one to order it. So I try to eat at least half of the food. And sometimes I'll even do a to-go box and then like go around a corner and
throw it away. I've totally done that.
Because it's like, and you always like, no one cares. And I'm like, everyone cares.
Or sometimes I'll get it in the to-go box and then I'll like accidentally leave it on the table and just like walk away.
Oh my God. I feel so much better. This is like but it's like a meeting of neurotic people. Neurotic People Anonymous. That's what this is. And I just feel so heard and seen because it's like I go through all of these leaps to do this. And so it's just sort of like, yeah, my dogs are fine eating the same thing every single day. Oh, but speaking of dogs, the veterinarian told me to start warming their food. And this is the first person who said, you know, Dr. Morgan believes in not eating cold food. And because she asked me, she's like, do you warm their food? And I was like, actually, I do warm Rodrigo's food because he prefers it that way. I was like, everyone else, I just do hot water on their food to take the chill away. And she was like, good. She's like, just don't feed it cold out of the fridge. She's like, you know, let it get to warm temperature or warm it up somehow, but don't feed it. She's like, because if they were in the wild, and it's just like, it cracks me up when veterinarians say things like that, because usually the veterinarians are the ones that are just sort of like, okay, guys, they're not wolves. They're not wild dogs. They are pets. But, you know, she was like, they would be eating their prey. It would be hot. And so she's like, that's what their body is meant for, designed to do. And she's like, and it takes so much energy in their body to warm up the food. And I should ask her more about, you know, I should just start reading up on it, just about how the biology of it all. Because I know that, you know, years ago, someone told me that, you know, if you want to lose weight, drink ice cold water. I have heard that. You burn calories warming it up. And then I was just like, and I'm the person that, first of all, I believe everything that everyone tells me. And the only reason why I now Google things is because I have made the mistake of believing what everyone tells me so many times. And with social media, people are quick to tell you, yeah, you need to do more homework. And I have a friend of mine, my friend's husband, Greg. Greg will be like, Kimberly, you need to research that a little bit more, because I don't think that that's what what you think it means. And so I was like, okay. And so now I read up on it, but it made sense to me at the time. But then someone else was like, no, it's not that simple. Cause it's like, if it were that simple, then we wouldn't have an obesity problem if it were just like that. So, all right. But
I think it might be like a calorie. It's not like thousands.
I know, exactly. It's like, I'll just start doing infomercials. I'm like 50 pounds in 7 weeks, just drinking ice cold water. But yeah, she was just like, she said, feeding cold is not a good idea. She's like, specifically, do not feed frozen raw. And I was just like, I know tons of people who feed frozen raw. And by tons, I mean, like, I know of 2 people.
Like who just straight frozen?
Yeah. I know people who feed it either because, like, I've known people who are like, I forgot to thaw it out, so I just fed it frozen. And these are just discussions I've seen in raw feeding groups mainly. People who feed frozen because their dog wolfs down their food, so feeding it frozen slows them down and makes them take their time eating it. And I think those are the only real 2 reasons I've seen people feed frozen raw. But yeah, a lot of people are like, yeah, it's fine. And I mean, I'm sure, there's a lot of things that are fine, but now because of Scout and because we're like trying to find the underlying cause of his cancer, I'm like looking at everything with suspect eyes. And it's just like, was it the cold food? Did the cold food give my dog cancer? I know it didn't, but it's still. So.
Well, that's, I'm hit and miss with whether I like bring it up. Like sometimes I'll take it out, like usually in the mornings, I'll get up, pull the food out, let it just sit in the sink for probably like an hour or so. And it kind of gets more like room temperature before I feed it. In the evenings, sometimes it's straight out of the fridge, it's defrosted and everything. And sometimes I'll put like warmer water on it. Sometimes I don't. But now I'm like, oh God, I really need to be better about that.
I know. And it's funny because it's not that big of a deal. Like doing it, warming up our dog's food is not that big of a deal. But sometimes it's sort of like one more step of things that I need to do.
But Nino's digestion is always so wonky that like, I'm like, oh, I should be more diligent about this because it could help his digestion.
Mm-hmm. It does with Rodrigo. It made a huge, because he just would flat out not eat. He would like put the food in his mouth and then he would do a couple chews and as the food's falling out. And then he would look at me like I had betrayed him. And so I started warming up his food. He'll eat it cold sometimes, like if he's really hungry, I guess maybe. But for the most part, I just, and I know that people will probably have an issue with this, but I will toss it in the microwave for 30 seconds to take like if I'm running behind or something, I'll do that. But for the most part, what I do is I want to start setting the alarm, getting up and going and taking the food out of the fridge and letting it get to room temperature. But yeah.
You're like, but realistically, and who I am as a person. Yeah.
So what I do instead is we have a kettle on the stove and I just heat it up and not let it get to boiling, but just have it, percolating so that it's getting warmer. And Johan turned the temperature up on our water that when we do hot water. I have no idea what he does. It's magic as far as I'm concerned. But when COVID was an issue and everyone's worried about like, what do we do? He was just like, well, let's turn the water up and make it hotter and that'll kill all of the virus. And it took us like a few months to get used to the fact that when we put it on hot, we had to be careful.
It was so hot, right? So hot.
But if you can get it to the hot level and pour it over the food, it'll take the chill off.
Yeah.
But then I worry about just wasting water. Even though we're on a well, I still worry about just having water running down the drain. Because in my mind, I'm like, we're going to have a drought and there's going to be zombies and we're not going to have water because that's how my brain works.
Oh, do you guys have like a water filter?
Uh-huh. We live on a well. And then so we have water filters for the well water to come into the house.
Yeah, we have like city water, but we have like a thing that we fill it up, and it sits on our counter and filters the water. So the dogs always get filtered water. We always cook with filtered water. We always have like a giant pitcher of the water. And I remember a couple years ago we went on vacation, and a friend of ours was staying at the house to dog sit for us because he's like the only person we knew that Nino wouldn't totally freak out on. And I had to give him like the whole tutorial on how to use the water filter, and he's kind of like, oh, you want me to do what? And I'm like, don't you give my dogs city water. I'll know. I know. Because we even have like a filter in the shower too. It's like the charcoal style filter, but it's like I know when that thing runs out because we have really hard water and we'll start getting all that pink stuff like in the bottom of the tub or in the and so I'm like, what is that doing to our insides?
I hate thinking about things like that. I've had to like put brakes on my brain when it comes to certain topics. Like my brother sent the dogs a box of toys from PetSmart, and I was so excited. And the dogs love all the toys. So for a couple of days, the toys were scattered all over the house, except for 3 of them because I pulled them out of the box and they were so soft that I was like, this one's for me. I'm just going to pet it. and ultimately I'll give them to Zoe because Zoe's so careful with her toys that I always like to save the really nice ones for her. And then she plays with them when her, bully brothers run around to steal the toys from her. Because when she's not, and this is a good topic for another episode, but when she's not around her brothers, she is a completely different dog, and it's hilarious. Yeah, just like she's so funny. It's hilarious. She just does. They whenever a toy is out, they'll come and they won't just snatch it from her because they know better, and she's not going to put up with it. But they'll slowly try and just drag it slowly away from her, and she's not a fan of that. So, and I'm not a fan of it either. But yeah, so we got these, but I posted a picture of the toys, and the one comment that I got was, aren't you concerned that these were made in China? And I'm just sort of like, I can't. That's where I put the brakes on.
Right.
I can't. I think I'm surrounded probably like just within arm's reach. Every single thing that's around me was made in China. So it's just like that ship has sailed here. I mean, it's like, I get it because, you think about like the chemicals and, when you look at fabric and the colors that are in the fabric, and then my dog is chewing on this possibly, with some dogs swallowing it, what is this doing to their insides? But it's like, I had to put the brakes somewhere. And so my dogs do get toys that were possibly made in China.
I understand. We have to set our own boundaries and limits, and that's part of our self-care and mental health too. And we can't be
no city
obsessing
water.
With yeah, I will not they will not drink city water, but that is a non-negotiable. And then I found out there's a veterinarian who talks about like a better water filter than like the reverse osmosis water filter, and about how reverse osmosis is like dead water because you do have to add like the minerals back in, and she has a filter that's like I don't know, I don't know if she recommends it. I don't know if it's a business thing or if she just believes in it or what it is, but like that thing was like $5,000.
I know. So someone contacted me about a treatment. She wasn't sure if it would work, but she was just like, she was looking into it for her dog, and she thought that I could look into it for Scout, and that she spoke to the veterinarian about it. And, and she's like, I think you should really check them out and stuff. And so I'm reading the email and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I mean, it can't hurt. I can call and see what it's about. The first treatment that she was talking about, and I honestly can't remember what they were, but the first treatment was $6,000. But it's accepted by insurance or some insurance companies. The second treatment was $60,000.
What?
Now, I love my dog very much. I don't have $60,000. This was for a bone marrow transplant.
Oh,
and it's just like, no, or I'm not putting my dog through that. And it's just like, I mean, I have no problem with people who have the funds to do things like that. I think it's amazing. But oh my gosh. And I don't know about you, but I always get this sense of guilt because of my reaction to the price. Cause it's just sort of like, well, maybe I should have a $5,000 water filter.
Right.
But it's just sort of like, but do I need that? I mean, it's so hard to know, how much of this is legit and helpful and how much of it is kind of a scam to take advantage of us.
Or just like, you don't want to make it like a financial decision, but like, what's the return on investment of like, is it like that much better than a reverse osmosis filter where you add the minerals back in? Like, is it, and, if it gets your dog 10 more years of life, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how everybody has to make those decisions for themselves. Sure. If I win the lottery tomorrow, I will absolutely put this filter in my house.
Exactly. And that's the hard part is like, I'm not saying that my dog isn't worth it, but I don't know. First of all, this person is a stranger that sent me this email. Right. I don't know what any of this is. I don't know if this is legit or not. Because I've also received emails from people who are members of like, MLMs who are like, oh, and, you can get this thing. It costs $600 and, it cures cancer and stuff. And it's just sort of like, this looks like an MLM. And I'm pretty positive that, I don't know if it's the FDA or I'm pretty sure it is the FTC. Probably the FDA too, would have a problem with you promoting something that cures cancer because as far as the government is concerned, there is no cure for cancer. So what you doing? Because I don't know you, but all of a sudden you want me to sign up for this very expensive treatment.
Right.
And you're not a doctor. You definitely haven't seen my dogs. So what's up? So so I'm also a little suspicious of strangers sending me these miracle cures for my dogs, especially because there are, I don't know if it's a cure, but Chinese medicine is doing wonders for my dog.
And you were making a very good point, or I was reading between the lines that one of the points you were making with you and the vet was that she doesn't want you saying, ooh, I have my dogs on XYZ herb blend, because that's not going to be the appropriate herb blend for every dog that has lymphoma. That it's like very individual. And that's why it's important, like you said, to like research these different things, because it's like different patterns of, of like behaviors and characteristics in your dog. Like it depends. And, kind of like with homeopathy too, like there's not always like a one size fits all kind of approach. So I can understand her not wanting you to be like, this is what I'm doing.
I thought of like warming and cooling proteins and how so many people get so into the warming and cooling proteins, but they don't really know what they're doing. They haven't gone beyond those food charts that we find online. And there's so much more to that. And you see people who like will refuse to feed their dog like venison. Like if they have a dog that needs to be fed cool proteins or neutral proteins, they'll refuse venison and lamb. But those foods have benefits too, and you can cool them down or you can feed them in the wintertime. It's not so much to say don't ever feed these foods. It's just to educate yourself so you understand the food's connection with whatever health issue your dog experiences. And so with Chinese herbs, especially if it's a blend, you can have a blend like for a Scout that is hot or worming, and maybe that's not something that he needs. And only someone who is experienced in, I don't know if it's herbology, but that's what I'm gonna call it, herbology, will be able to help you with that. Because lymphoma is a diagnosis. And so, tons of dogs have been diagnosed with lymphoma, but every single one of those dogs has a unique lifestyle, a unique diet. They live in a unique areas. There's so many things. And when I was talking, same thing like what you said with the homeopathy, I had a similar conversation with the veterinarian where she wanted to know, like, what is his diet like? What is his temperament like? And how does he get along with his siblings? And do you ever do this? And how does he respond to this? And she's also paying very close attention to everything that he's doing when he's at her home and how he sniffs around and how he interacts with her. And I mean, it's absolutely, I mean, it's pretty exciting. It's disappointing, I think, because I think we all want a quick fix to everything.
Right.
But to know that I can get something specific for Scout that will work for Scout gives me a little more confidence that he will pull through. So, I mean, he's doing really well so far. So we'll see.
Well, I love getting these updates.
I'll continue updating you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next week.